Okay, good afternoon. I'm Ed Ullmann, the pharmacist on that beautiful wellness center up in Tannersville, New York. And today we are going to continue with our series on energy medicine. And we're going to be interviewing one of the giants in the Hudson Valley, Jason Elias. Jason has been, to many, the dean of natural medicine, and I've always admired him for all the years of staying with this focus on healing and taking on the healthcare industry when he felt it was needed, and taking on hot issues like identifying that Lyme disease, which was so pervasive, it still is, in the Hudson Valley, needs to be respected that this is a chronic disease and can be. And he's been talking about these hot issues for 30 to 40 years. So, welcome, Jason.
Well, thank you, Ed.
How you doing? When I was doing some research on this, I thought it was very interesting. We both began our careers in this field at the same time in the early 70s. And I took on a little bit of a different course, and you took on a different course. And here we are, ending our last chapters of our career, talking about the same issues at a very important time in our country.
Yeah.
Now, if there's ever a definition of a Renaissance man, you're it. All right? If I understand this, you first became a clinical psychologist, married a psychiatrist, and got a little disappointed in the traditional clinical approach, and kind of went around and tested the world to see what you could find. And through that journey, through Asia and India, you became an acupuncturist. You became an herbalist. You became a massage therapist. You trained in movement therapy, sound therapy, the Alexander technique. And you came back to try to make some sense out of all of this, and to set up a practice where you could basically treat the individual in a holistic way without preaching, and allowing them to be their own private investigator to help with the healing. Now that's taken a lot of different paths to come to where we are right now. So first question I wanted to ask you, you often speak about people that you have met on this journey and how they have influenced you. And why is that?
I feel blessed. You know, I feel ever since, can't say birth, but ever since I was 4 or 5 years old and we could play, I always wanted to play doctor. My grandmother was a healer from Greece. She had Jewish roots, and whenever anyone was sick, she didn't speak English because my father brought her over when he was young, but she had poultices and she had herbs and she would treat people that way. And I pretended. I would cut grass clippings, and if someone was sick, I'd give them the grass clippings. So I felt there was something that was being transmitted. There was something that I loved, you know, but I never felt smart enough. I was dyslexic. You know, I graduated high school with a 69 average, but my IQ was really high. And when I got into a college, because of the IQ, I found a passion for psychology. But it led me to realize there were limitations, that the mind could go so far, and then there was a place where spirit needed to come in. And that healing of the mind, the body, or the spirit was one. So you needed to address all those things. And I felt I wanted to be sort of a doctor, but I needed to follow that path. And it led me to all of these teachers. And I felt blessed that I could do that. I followed the journey around the world, trying to seek what healing really was in different cultures.
When you have, from your travels and into practice, what are some of your wow moments that you remember?
Wow. Basically, there were just realizing the amazing capacity of the person to heal themselves. I've seen many cases of spontaneous remissions of cancer, you know, either with the psychic healers in the Philippines, being in Hong Kong working with an acupuncturist who I could see people walk in the office really ill, and you know, I could see them walk out with energy, and then they would tell me their stories. I had a translator because he only spoke Chinese. So again and again, I'd see the amazing capacity of these healing modalities, but I felt that the key wasn't that there was a healing modality. It was connecting to the person's ability to heal themselves, which is infinite. You know, so I loved learning modalities. So I learned Chinese herbalism, I got certified in that. I learned Western herbalism, because these are tools that we can use. But I felt that the most destructive tool was Western medicine, because it didn't embrace the person. It tried to attack the symptom. And again, I could see the ramifications, the negative ramifications, you know, that happened with that. So when I met you, having trained in Western pharmacology, and just embracing that it wasn't bad, but it was used badly. You know, I felt that immediate connection with the way you.
Wow, it's very fascinating to me and maybe part of the journey as we are getting older is looking back at wow moments is really our stories. These stories of having trust with another human being and allowing them to explore more alternatives to heal, and then watching it develop. Pretty wow moment, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure how many other professionals in a traditional sense get those kind of wow moments, because healthcare can often become very transactional. And so maybe we've been very blessed.
I think we have, and you know, creating the right, you know, herbal tonic, the right approach that someone ingests something that gives their bodies the ability to heal itself, I think is such an art and a gift.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
you have done so many videos, and they're very educational, and I think they are probably a good way to speak with individuals. But one that you did I found was interesting is when you try to talk about what the difference and likeness is with herbal medicine and traditional medicine. Could you just comment on that?
traditional meaning Western medical?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and it's what we was just talking about. Herbal medicine is finding the food that the body needs that will support its ability to heal itself. But it is based on science, and I love the science. So, you know, I don't like just the hocus pocus that, you know, the herbal, you know, medicine is energetic medicine that will, you know, create the healing. There is a science to it too, but it, you know, each herb has another action. You know, dandelion root we know really supports liver functions. So, but if you do that and you tell the person you're working with, this is going to be the effect, you get their consciousness connected to the healing process and the healing properties of the plants, of the pharmaceuticals, of the acupuncture, whatever modality you use gets amplified by that connection of the person taking it.
You know, you also mentioned most medical conditions are self-healing. Most medical conditions, you can work. So why not attempt using herbal medicine? And if there's a Western medicine, traditional, is there as a backup, great. And I thought that was a wise way to present it.
Absolutely. You know, I had a wonderful experience. So a woman came to me with endometriosis, but a severe case. And she developed an endometrial tumor. So when she came in my office, she looked pregnant. She had to wear a dress, you know, that was a pregnancy dress because she was this big. And she came to me because she asked me on the phone whether I dealt with endometriosis. I said, yes, of course. And the herbs are very good. It can help to reverse it. But when she came to me, I said, have you considered surgery? And she looked at me like I was evil. You know, I came to you because you're an herbalist, you're an acupuncturist, you said that you dealt with it. I said, yeah, if it's at the beginning, but do you realize you can walk into the side of a table, that thing can burst, and that you can get peritonitis and die? And she was very angry at me. And, you know, she left, and I bumped into a friend of hers a couple of years later who recommended me. I said, have you heard from her? And he said, yeah, she lives in San Francisco now, and she lives around her endometriosis. She goes to every healer. It's gotten worse. So here's a situation in which surgery makes a lot of sense. So it's not one thing is right and the other wrong, but it's that marriage between knowing when Western medicine can be effective and supportive, but using herbal medicine, as you say, first if you can, to really let the body heal itself, but if not, how wonderful to have the resources.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good way to define it. Okay, you know, Jason, as I've gotten older and have gone back into a wonderful environment of blending traditional pharmacy with natural medicine, I've also discovered how important it is to be present, to allow my patients to feel the energy that I'm there. You've always had this skill, haven't you?
To me, this is the key of healing, is presence, you know, and you're very humble in your own, you know, it's really, and I think humility is a basic quality of healing. So if someone comes to you and asks advice, they know that you're not trying to show them how much you know. You're connecting with them and using the reservoirs of your knowledge to try to find something that would work for them. You know, and I feel something I've learned over the years is the less I'm involved, the better the healing. There was an old, Nasruddin is a Sufi clown, and he said, you know, when I was very young, I wanted to change the world. And as I got older, I realized I couldn't do that, but maybe if I can change those people closest to me. And he said, now that I'm a wise old man, if I can only change myself. You know, it's this, you know, and I feel, you know, it's, humility comes with age. When we're young, we have the thing. We have that which we're going to put on the world, and this is going to change you. And I admire the youth and their, you know, their enthusiasm, and in many ways, as we're older, their arrogance. Because nothing is good for everybody. Yeah. You know, and I think one of the things as we gather knowledge is we become more humble. Yeah. And we feel out that the person has their own needs. So I think presence, back to what you said, is really...
Yeah, it's the key, I think, to have, well, pride is one emotion. But to know that you've made a difference in the life of someone. I had an experience yesterday with a mom who came in with a classic case of shingles and came in with a little 8-year-old boy. And the mom had just died and is pushed on to the emotions, and this immune system got challenged, and there's the shingles. So I said to him, I'm going to be working with your mom a little bit. And I got down to talk with him and say, would you like a honey stick? So he goes over and I give him one, and he goes, I don't like that. So I said, okay, well, how about a lollipop? And he goes, oh, okay. So he came and sat on our bench that we have and sat there with his lollipop. And I said, can I take a picture of you while I'm helping your mom? And he said, sure. Now, I took this picture, and I've used it to show everyone, because I wanted them to see, you know, this beauty, the presence, to watch the child with the lollipop. And it's a very, very beautiful experience. And I have a feeling that you have these experiences all the time.
That's what makes life worth living, to me, is, you know, when you've tapped into someone and given them some happiness, some joy, some feeling of wellness. It's, you know, and that's why I have a lot of trouble promoting myself. I just feel my business is like a one-on-one business. And people say, well, you should get out there and do more television or promote your books. You know, I mean, I've written 5 books, and I said, no, I love the books to sell, but I'm meant to be here seeing my clients one-on-one, because that's what brings joy to me and makes a difference when I see the change.
That's wonderful. Now, coming in on your books, that was actually my next question. So I think we're really talking here. You have had 5 books, and your most recent one, The 7 Graces of Aging, right?
Very good.
And you said that you found this to be most inspiring. Tell us about it.
Thank you. The book actually, it's done, but we're releasing, it's not released yet because of the political climate. We felt that to release a book now, there isn't a receptive, we have to get through this crisis. But the book was, a number of my clients were in their 80s and 90s who were really thriving. And most of them weren't taking medications, most of them were living healthy lives, but all of them were passionate about what they did. And they inspired me to, what is your secret? What gives you this longevity? So I thought of interviewing them. So I have 12 what I call pathfinders. These are 12 of my clients and friends who represent to me the joys, the 7 graces of ageless aging that came through this. So the subtitle is How to Die Young, as late in life as possible. And it's keeping that joy, that enthusiasm. So I'm very pleased. I like this book because it's really much more, I think, my other books are more technical, and philosophical. This one, I think, connects.
So it's more joyful.
Yeah.
And inspirational, and that's beautiful. I interviewed, I don't know, a handful of folks 85 or above, and I wanted to get a feel for what makes them tick. I couldn't find any evidence of age-related or culture or sex or anything. It had nothing. But what I did find about them was a fighting spirit. There was something to go, hey, I'm living one day at a time, and it's pretty glorious. And they had an independentness to them. And I found that spark was a key across all cultures. Define what you have found in those stories.
To me, it's, everything has its place, including lifestyle, diet, exercise, or movement. But the key to me was the passion.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what, you're saying, the fighting spirit. It's not like a fighting spirit.
No.
It's an enthusiasm for life.
Yes.
And whether they're doing what they've done all their lives. So one of my clients just passed away, and he was over 100. But he's a medical doctor from this area. He was in the Catskills. He retired at 70 from New York City. He had a Park Avenue practice. Came up here to retire and play tennis, and was miserable. He loved his healing work, and he opened a practice here. And I did the interview with him about 2 months before his 100th birthday.
Oh, wow.
He was still a practicing physician, but he had had an episode in the hospital. But it's like his enthusiasm for what he did for his life, and he'd broken a leg, went to the hospital, and caught pneumonia. So it was one of these chain effects. But, it was this, but he lived to the very last moment. Yeah. And he did what he loved doing, which is healing and helping people.
And he transitioned with a smile on his face.
He did.
Which is nice. One of the things I've been watching and trying now because of these troubling times is how do we bridge this generational gap? How do I connect with the young 20-year-olds? And how do we grow together? And I've been bringing on more interns as a way to see how this goes. And I found a little clever way of, I'm really challenged with technology. And so you can either get frustrated or you can laugh at yourself. And so I say to them, I need your help. And they love it. And then I tell them, well, you might need some rays of my wisdom. And we end up finding ways to have this generational discussion. How important do you think this is going to be when we come out of this this dark cloud right now?
I mean, I would love to see it happen. I too am grasping at, the attention span for young people is very limited. And so much of what we're teaching requires patience. I've been studying Tai Chi, and very few young people do Tai Chi because it requires perseverance and it's slow and you don't learn something quickly. But I feel this COVID experience, this political animosity and is kind of has thrown kids to a place that I'm hopeful that there can be, they want to know, I think, something more spiritual, because it's void around them. And I think there may be an opening,
I think I'm seeing it very much so. That 18 to 24-year-old group right now is the highest percentage for anxiety disorders. It's coming up now with depression, and 12% are reporting suicidal thoughts on a regular basis.
Sad, yeah.
So if our mentorship is not needed now, it never would be. I did get a chance to try to meet so many people up, because we're in a tourist community, and I'm very, very upbeat about what I saw. Right? I know first thing I saw was men and women, young men and women. There's an equality that I never saw in my generation. We grew up. Women are highly educated, highest awards at high school and college, and they are demanding equality. And young men are taking more responsibility for the raising of children, which we never saw before, which was great. I haven't seen that they're homophobic. I haven't seen that they care about race or color or religion. I see that they are very champions of the environment and are very concerned on what we are leaving behind to them. We have failed them, and we have to be honest about it. Yeah. And so I see a lot of good values to build around. And I hope that we can find these bridges, because I have found that when they know I have to be the lead, they're not going to trust me. I have to be the lead. But when they know I'm legit, I'm authentic, right?
I think that's the word.
They really like the bonding.
It really is authenticity, because they don't see it.
Yeah.
Their world and the world that we created.
Yeah.
We're the baby boomers, and a lot of us sold out for stuff, and it's like I do feel that what's going on now is that white male world at the brink, and they see that they're at a point of possible extinction, and there's the fight going on. But my sense is the kids hopefully will bring it to extinction. That this white male dominated world is, it's interesting with COVID, it was pointed out that all of the countries that really controlled COVID and never had major spikes were run by women. Mm. The prime ministers in Sweden, there's something where I think the feminine spirit needs to be given prominence right now. And I'm the first, when I wrote a book.
I was just going to say that.
I wrote a book called The House of the Moon, which was in the paperback called Feminine Healing. And when the book was finished, it was Warner Books, Time Warner, so it was a big book company, and they sent it to their, sales staff, and they said, we have a major problem, which is you. And I said, what? You're a man. So it was like, what do I do? They said, I had a co-writer who was a woman, so I had to write the preface after the book talking about how I reclaim my own feminine spirit. Mm. And that healing is a feminine art. So it was interesting that at the beginning of that book, was written at the end to kind of help sales, which I don't think it really helped. But
Jason, I wanted to stay with the feminine energy for a moment. And I look back, and over my career, I've managed about 5,000 employees in some shape or form. And 2/3 have been women. So most of the companies I either directed or managed have been with women. And what I've always found is things that become intuitive for women. Team play, focus, get the job done, less about your ego and your personality, problem solvers, and almost looking at how life goes in a multitask type of situation. And men don't always see this. We've been in a warrior type of mode. We oftentimes don't look to try to resolve the conflict like women, how I see women. And maybe we antagonize the situation. So my experiences have been very, very positive, and has working with women, mainly running the companies, has allowed me to be much more successful and peaceful for it. What's some of your experiences that you have seen?
yeah, I mean, I feel healing itself can be looked at through the feminine and masculine perspectives, and both serve a purpose. But I do feel multitasking, the ability to take other people's points of view, is a more feminine outlook on life. But from a healing perspective, I often look at healing as either battlefield medicine or farming. The battlefield, is what pharmaceutical companies were about, and it's necessary. If you have a disease and we need to target it with some ammunition, we can shell it, we can, that's male oriented because it's toward a goal. But we lose sight of the damage and collateral damage that wars create. Whereas the Chinese medicine is based on, if someone comes to you for an illness, you failed, because you are meant to keep them healthy. And that's the feminine approach. It's really the farm. That we want to give the right nourishment, water, food, sunlight. If you create the right environment for that plant to be healthy, it naturally avoids getting illness, because its intrinsic health keeps it strong. So the feminine approach is the health approach. The masculine approach is really that battlefield approach. And I feel we need both. But I think our world is skewed so much toward the masculine and the power domination, that tribes over tribes, and our whole history is based on this. One tribe being stronger than the other, and it doesn't leave any space for healing. And I'm hopeful. That hope gets hit over the head again and again, that maybe, we as men, who I think both of us have kind of embraced the feminine within ourselves, and the women are embracing, and I'm not saying men and women, but embracing the power of their strength and their power. So I think we need to create more androgyny, that we need to be a better mix of male and female within each of us. But the part that's missing, and the part that was dominated for so many years, is the feminine. And that needs to really come back. And that was the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That broke my heart.
Many of us, especially being a fellow New Yorker and everything else. Do you know any culture around the world that women are not the glue to keep the families together?
No.
Think about that one.
No.
Yeah, I can't think of any either. And both you and I think, love exploring indigenous type of cultures and their healing. And you've traveled more than me and gotten into the bowels of this discussion more than me. But, I see it as world medicine. Tell me about some of your experiences working with the indigenous populations.
Yeah, it was it was part of my own healing. I mean, one of the people I worked with for a while was Rolling Thunder, a Native American medicine man. And you know, he was a medicine man. He would treat people. The Grateful Dead kind of made him very famous because he was their doctor, and he would work. I forgot, in San Francisco. He was at San Francisco State, teaching about healing to the medical doctors there.
Wow.
And you know, he was kind of accepted in those days, but there was something about the Native Americans' embrace of the connectedness to the mother, to the earth. You know, and he would say to me and anyone else who would train with him that we're at a precarious place where the mother may not be able to heal herself, and that each of the 5 colors, the 5 races, you know, the black people, the red people, the yellow people, the white people, and who did I leave out? The red, you know, each had a function, and we needed to function together. And it was, you know, so he raised my spirit enormously, and I studied herbal medicine with him for a short time. You know, and then going to the, you know, each group embraced the natural world and amplified the healing capacity of the natural world, and that I loved.
What about your experience in India? That had to be very fascinating.
In India, I was at a spiritual community, so I was doing my healing work there, you know, that I had been doing, and just meditating every day for hours, you know, and, you know, doing work for the community, just changed my life. And, you know, really, when I went there, I was on this path to be the healer, and I realized that healing was only something that came through. That the more I identified with the healer, the less effective I was at working with other people. So
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
This is interesting. The cultures that I've learned so much is from Eastern Europe, and in particular the Ukrainians and the Russians and the Poles, and I didn't know much about mineral water that I had was involved with, and essential oils, and so I reached out to learn from the Eastern Europeans, and I had asked them, how come you know and respect natural medicine so much? And they said, well, we grew up in a communist countries where we didn't trust our healthcare system, so we learned from mom, and mom learned from mom. And we learned how to stay healthy by respecting the land and what we could do it. And I'm quite sure that seed from our Native Americans, the Eastern Europeans, is probably why many cultures who have respect for natural medicine didn't have the affluence to have such a medical community that we have. But I found it fascinating. I just can't wait to go see more indigenous populations to learn.
Yeah, and I think we're moving back toward natural medicine because, you know, we're seeing the effects of, you know, Western medicine and the negative effects.
And the limitations of it. You know, we can't continue to spend 17.5% of our nation's wealth and have the outcomes that we have in this country. It's not, you know, infant mortality, moms dying at birth at the highest percentage in the world. This is terrible statistics for spending this kind of money, and we need to do better for it. I wanted to move something. Both you and I have become uninspired oftentimes about traditional medicine. We've seen the best. A member of my family just had a double transplant down in New York City of a heart and lung, and is living. We see some quite remarkable stuff, but we don't seem to do the blocking and the tackling, the wellness, and it's really disappointing with that kind of wealth and the money that we spend. We both understand this deep connection between emotions and the physical body. And we also understand that unresolved trauma is often the root of so many problems. At least when we get down to the roots, especially with anxiety. You talked about your role as a senior, about being a guide for your patients, helping them on their journey. What do you mean by being a guide for your patients?
No, absolutely. I mean, to me, a friend of mine wrote a book called All Sickness is Homesickness. That whatever we're going through guides us back to ourself in some way. And the symptoms or manifestations that lead us back to find the wholeness within ourselves. So I feel like when I work with people, particularly elders, but anyone, I try to have them see the symptoms as a guiding post. What are they telling you? You know, I mean, when I was younger and I got Rolfed, you know, if you ever heard of Rolfing, it's a very deep connective tissue work. And I was training in Gestalt therapy, and while I was doing the training, all of us were getting Rolfed, and you know, they were working on the muscles, and the Rolfer says, let a sound out. And when they were working on my thighs, I go, ah! You know, and they said, what's going on? I'm really angry. And when they were working on my jaw, I would start sobbing. And it became really clear that I held emotions in different areas. So expressions like carrying the world on your shoulders, sitting on your anger, took on another meaning. It's like we do hold our emotions in our bodies. And if we hold them long enough, not only the muscles, but they affect the organs. You know, when someone's full of bile, you know, the gallbladder, the liver, all of these expressions are based on a knowledge that people have known from time immemorial, that our emotions and our spirit manifest through the body as our body manifests in the emotions and spirit. So if you can help someone look at themselves and see what's going on in their lives, what might that symptom? You have irritable bowel, you can't keep anything in. I mean, what does that say? So when I talk to my clients, I try to get them involved in the healing process. Of course, we'll give them the herbs, the acupuncture, or I'll send them to a doctor, you know, to get a pharmacological prescription filled that might address it. But we always have two choices when we have physical symptomatology. We're either a victim, why me? Or we can say, what can I learn from this? And I think we can learn something from everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Correct. It's very fascinating. I had the privilege to work with Dr. John Upledger. If you know, he was the coiner of the craniosacral manipulation.
Yeah, great.
And he worked with a lot of post-traumatic stress syndrome patients coming back from the war and so on. But it was amazing to see how he manipulated the craniosacral fluid to help release the emotions. And since then, I've had the opportunity to understand what he was talking about, that we do hold so much trauma in the cells of our body, in the craniosacral fluid might be where the most. And I saw even more evidence in the CBD study that we did, that 15% of the patients experienced what we called emotional detoxification. That all of a sudden they started to scream and release these emotions, including an 18-year-old young man. And it was, I'm not going to be bullied anymore. I'm not. And he went through 2 hours of this emotions. It was his family holding hands together. And then what happens in each one, they then collapse, go to sleep. The next morning, the emotions that they were going have been gone. And so I think we need to do more research on understanding that this is physical. This is the way the body and the mind works, and have more techniques and tools to help individuals to release this trauma.
Yeah.
In addition to cognitive therapy and other things, but we need to use more tools, and something like CBD might be one of those. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's the research on psychedelics now.
Yeah.
You know, really getting people out of depression, out of suicidal ideations, you know, just by guided guided trips with mescaline and psilocybin.
Mhm.
You know, that where they have a partner, I mean, it's phenomenal. So sometimes there are many ways in, and I think each person is different as to what approach might free their craniosacral fluid, their musculature, their organs. But I feel like there is some technique that will help a person detox.
And it's interesting. You just mentioned natural products, and I have a feeling that if we studied natural products around the world that has had the ability to release these emotions, we might be very surprised on our journey. I want to kind of end on a couple things. We're in some very difficult times right now as Americans, as members of the world community. We probably have not seen this uncertainty in our lives other than the 68, 69.
Yeah, this puts that to a shame.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. There seemed to be a greater sense of that as the youth, that, you know, we could collectively make a difference and no one was going to stop us. We could do it. We don't quite have that right now. Everything. What's some of your ideas on where we come out of this as a better world community and individual communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need hope. You know, at times I felt hopeless during all of this, you know, which is rare for me because my life was always hope. I always saw that we were leading and the world was moving toward more symmetry, more union. You know, it was, you know, Marshall McLuhan with The Medium is the message that, you know, we can see what's happening in India, all over the world, that we become a global village, that we can work together, that there's a common language, and to see the world actually being more polarized, you know, and it kind of went against the vision I had. But I'm feeling, you know, sadly, this analogy is like bringing the boil to a head and letting the pus out. I do feel hope. I do feel that a lot of the more negative energies and the polar energies needed to find their expression, and hopefully healing can happen now. But we were talking about how the cerebrospinal fluid, you know, if we can see this as the world releasing some cellular holding, this negative trauma, that if we can release it, maybe we can come together and see what, to me and so many people around the world, is so obvious, that we are brothers and sisters, that healing of the planet and healing of our bodies are one. They go together. So I'm hopeful at this point that this period of pain that we've been through, and our children and grandchildren have been through, hopefully they'll be able to see this come together and be, you know.
It's very interesting what you just said, the importance of the healing of the environment and the healing of our bodies is really one. We're not going to be able to do one without the other together. For it, I'm hopeful, Jason, because I'm seeing a higher consciousness level coming out in many individuals. Recently, we have a patient assistance fund that is very simple. It's, you have a little extra, let's help members of our community who needs a little bit. I'll make sure as the pharmacist that we know who needs it and give it to them with dignity. And I had this wealthy gentleman come in and say, I've been watching your program here. And he goes, I'm a retired law professor at Columbia University, and I specialize in trust law. And I'm going to show you how you can take your fund and make it into a nonprofit trust so that you can then take tax deductions. And you will be able to help more people. And I said, so why are you doing this? You know, I hardly know you. You've been in the store once in a while. And he goes, because I know how to and I want to. The next week, all my documents are in place, the roadmap of how I work with the IRS, And we now are a trust fund, and we're going to be waiting for the final ruling. And I went, wow. And what he was saying to me as an older gentleman, if I am not using my gifts and my skills now, when am I going to use them? What am I going to just transition with them? I think we're going to see more of that consciousness coming out.
I think we are too, but what you're talking about, like all of you being together, is synergy. People come into our lives at certain times, and if we're open, we support each other and we find a way to work together to bring something bigger.
Yes.
And that's what is happening with you. He moved into that synergetic field, and things are happening, and we're not saying, no, it's like you go with it. And it is exciting. I have the same feeling.
Well, I'm seeing the evidence of that. And when they've asked me, what's your business plan? And I go, it's very simple. We're here to be of service to others. And that will bring people back. And that will have people tell other people about us. And we will remain authentic. And that will lead to a profitable business. And that will lead to helping more individuals. That's our business plan. And my corporate friend said, say that one again. And I go, it's just simple business 101. Kindness works. Kindness does attract other individuals who want to be part of a white light, not darkness. We can't do it all. We can only be part of the energy of a team. And greatness can come out. And that's when I'm very, very hopeful. I'd like to leave you with a couple things today, Jason, from Oprah, okay, of all individuals.
I like Oprah.
But she's good.
I like her.
How do you end this question? Love is?
Love is empathy. Love is the ability not to take on others' pain, but to be open to their pain and be there for them. It's the difference between empathy and sympathy. We can't take someone's pain upon ourselves. It doesn't help them and it doesn't help you. But if I can be empathic, if I understand what you're going through, if I can walk in your shoes, if people can do that as a whole, I think, for me,
it would be gone. And spirit is?
Okay, it's all the same. Spirit is love. Spirit is the ability to lose the boundary between you and other. And other includes other individuals, the earth, just, this ego that I am different, or I am, and that's the whole world that I think, hopefully is beginning to collapse. Is, it's a me world. I want more. I want, so yeah, that's.
Last question of, we often are asking ourselves, so why are we here? And if you really push down, for me, it seems to be very simple. We're here to leave behind a better world for another generation. Why do you think we're here?
Well, I'll own what you said. I mean, that sounds like we're coming from the same space. But I think we're here to connect to being, to connect to core, and that's what meditation or presence does. And when you're present, we may not be able to save the world, but we can become one with it. It's, I hope that the world can save itself, but I feel that our job is to really connect with that part in ourselves that can create that love, that spirit, that empathy. And only together, if we get enough of us doing that.
Isn't that what all the spiritual faiths believe? That if there's enough kindness, it radiates and then is powerful, and that we need to just at least be points of light
Absolutely.
that together we are stronger, and then it multiplies.
I
Jason,
agree. This is great.
thank you so much
Oh, this
for
is,
taking time today.
well, thank you. That was fantastic.